Welcome, Star Trek faithful, to another episode of Nerd Teachers Anonymous, the show where we break down everything there is to break down about Star Trek. Right now, it looks like season 3 of Picard. I'm Mr. D, here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. G.
Good to see you, Mr. D.
Likewise, my friend, it's great to have you hanging out and talking about Star Trek again. This really put a spring in my step a few weeks ago, and especially because we got those 300 likes. I mean, 300 views. I keep saying that. I want 300 likes.
You and me both.
We got our 300 views. Very excited about that. Very thankful to the audience members who went along on this journey with us. Looking for more likes and looking to get back to that nice big 500 views, 1,000 views number. That's just going to make our day. That's going to be warp 10, which is, theoretically impossible. But I bet with a little work, we can get there. Let's talk quickly about the format. We're talking season 3 of Picard, specifically episode 3, 17 seconds, and episode 4, no scenario. We're going to talk strengths first, then we're going to talk struggles, and then Mr. G's got an outro for us, and we'll go from there. Audience members, as you're listening and you hear something that you want us to talk more about, maybe you want us to debate it up a little bit, a little forced choice argumentation, whatever that looks like, drop it in the comments. They mean a ton to us. We can't make this better without your feedback. So thank you so much for the views. Thank you so much for the likes. And without further ado, I say we talk strengths of Picard, Season 3, Episode 3, and Season 3, Episode 4.
Sure.
How you doing, Mr. G? What's on your mind with these two?
So, the most recent episode, No Win Scenario, is probably the episode that has won me over to this show.
Let's go.
This show, episode 4, was the episode in which I realized this is what I wanted from Discovery. In the sense that I wanted a show that was a modern redress of Star Trek in all the correct ways. And something where I could watch this, get some uplifting, good charge from a good emotional charge from the show, and also have some rewatchability. I've seen all the episodes at least twice now. The first 2 episodes I've seen at least 3 or 4 times. And because of the quality of storytelling at this point, I can go back to those first couple episodes, and there are clues and Easter eggs and foreshadowing that on first watch you would not notice and you wouldn't know its importance. But now, having seen the end of these mini arcs, because there are several character arcs and plot points that are satisfied, you can go back and really appreciate certain blink and you'll miss it references. Like, for example, when Riker and Picard first get on the Titan A, Riker is inspecting the troops, and spoiler alert, the crewman who's the changeling gives Riker a side eye. And when I was grabbing footage for our B-roll, I saw that clip and I went, oh my gosh, that's amazing. The lights flickering in 17 seconds, that pays off big time in No Win Scenario, and it's just enjoyable. I watch these even 17 seconds to a degree, which definitely has a downer ending. I don't want to give the impression that Star Trek's always optimistic, but you get some sort of positive feeling and you feel better having watched it, is when I'm thinking Star Trek is its best. So that's my big pro. Other pros are, this is Star Trek Picard Season 3 is a repudiation of what I call the old regime. I don't know if you've mentioned this, or if you caught on to this, Mr. D, but there are so many sly jabs and insults at Discovery and the first 2 seasons of Picard in particular that I absolutely love. Please let us know in the comments what your favorite dig at the original seasons of Picard are, because there are things like Jack Crusher saying, history remembers you better with one less pip, Admiral, saying your best years were as a captain, and I agree with that. Having Picard be an admiral was an scenario in which Captain Shaw completely desecrates what they did to the Borg in season 2, and he says, forget that radio edit stuff that happened on the Stargazer. The real
Yeah.
Borg are still out there. I love that. Knocking on him on, excuse me, Jack Crusher knocking on Picard for spending too much time in his vineyard. I absolutely like that. So once again, folks, if there is a particular zinger that you'd like against modern Trek, please let us know in the comments. There are so many, you could almost do a drinking game for it. Not that we'd endorse that sort of thing.
Only with water.
With water. There you go.
Okay, so it sounds like your goods are a lot about kind of getting back to the tone, the feeling, and also some tight writing. You know, tight writing to me is what's rewarded in a rewatch, right? Good writing, obviously, good storytelling is rewarded in a rewatch, but also that tight writing with the foreshadowing or maybe some of the clues, hints. All right, yeah. We'll talk a little bit about, you know, me not paying that close of attention to that stuff. I have not gone back and watched them twice. We can chat a little bit about why and the struggles. But I did know that some of that is there, and I do definitely appreciate the tone. You know, so if we can move in kind of my strengths, issues, yes, the best thing I could say is that this definitely felt far more like kind of classic Trek. We have a mission, we go do it. It doesn't take 10 episodes. There's a setback, we overcome the setback. The odds are against us. It's based in space phenomenon. You know, it's whoa. Did they totally throw out the entire old writing team and roll out good old Gene from the grave? I don't even know. It feels way different. Having said that, I gotta say, it took them 4 episodes, and I'll take away the pilot. I'll take away the first one because that's kind of getting the story going again. It took them 3 episodes to kind of tell what TNG would do in 1. That's the only negative thing I could say about the structure. It's like, I understand they're never going to go back to one 45-minute segment. I understand that. I get it. I would just say, like, yes, it felt awesome. The tone was right. The mission specificity, the space phenomena, all there. I mean, it was a gravity well. Have we had a gravity well in Picard? Or even like threatening space phenomenon in Picard yet?
The current show, no, and that kind of scientific fluency is also a major plus.
Yes,
there is
yes.
so much authenticity here that I very much appreciate. It's absolutely phenomenal in that regard. And you had mentioned Gene Roddenberry, and I kind of get the impression that the writers and the producers especially, kind of watch YouTube because so many people on YouTube say that this is not, modern Trek in particular, is not Gene Roddenberry's vision.
Yeah.
And take it or leave it about Gene Roddenberry's vision, because a lot of writers back in the golden age of Star Trek, you know, the DS9 Next Generation era, a lot of those writers, Ira Stephen Bear, for example, took great issue with Gene Roddenberry's vision. So there's that. And that's a discussion for another time. Go ahead, bud.
I was just gonna say, you know, Gene isn't infallible. I just watched the episode from TNG, Manhunt. It's awful. It's really sexist maybe not sexist, but it's just like, okay, your entire conception of a strange culture is heightened sexual and, you know, intensity or something for like what you know what I'm saying? It's like Gene had some constraints and some limitations too. But anyways, it definitely feels a lot more like there's one showrunner that understands Trek.
Yes.
A lot better than we've had before. Okay, so the only yes, we're getting out of this mirror universe, yesterday's Enterprise, everything is negative, everything is death and war. We're kind of getting away from that. You know, I was watching yesterday's Enterprise and it's like, wow, this literally feels like all of Picard season 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
If it was just yesterday's Enterprise for 2 seasons. I'm so glad yesterday's Enterprise is 1 episode and 1 episode only. Anyways.
That's true.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about something that doesn't feel like Gene Roddenberry. Still a strength, though, and I think that's Shaw.
Yes.
Shaw does not feel like a typical Gene Roddenberry captain, because Gene Roddenberry captains or Star Trek captains tend to be, you know, moral paragon
Mm-hmm.
or corrupt, flawed bureaucrat. Like
That's true.
Admiral Nechayev. It's kind of an attempt to not make him, and then it's just bad again. I was watching Journey's End the other day,
Oh no.
and Nechayev, you rough. But anyways, Shaw's not like that. Shaw's
No.
like a captain who has a vessel and then steps aside and then finds use again in engineering. What do you think about that? What do you think about the whole Shaw arc kind of thing? Is he stay an engineer? What do you think?
Well,
how do you feel about that transition out of captaincy? We don't see that very much.
Robert Meyer Burnett, who was the first supporter of Star Trek Picard season 3 back when everybody thought he was insane for promoting it, put it best when he said that this is Star Trek's greatest hits in the best way possible. And that is a really good thesis for describing this season, because I attribute a lot of, especially No Win Scenario, to Roddenberry's vision, but I also attribute characters like Shaw to a Deep Space Nine era sort of flawed, complex character who has his darkness, talks about his dark experiences. I have watched that scene with them in the holodeck no less than 5 times, both on YouTube and also just watching the whole episode for fun. It is absolutely phenomenal, that scene. And one of the things I found fascinating is how they handle post-traumatic stress syndrome. And they do it in a way that, while admittedly not directly Roddenberry's way, it's done in a Roddenberry adjacent fashion where he does have some problems, he does have his struggles, but he still finds usefulness, still finds the light, so to speak. There are so many Deep Space Nine episodes where characters have dark spots, beloved characters. O'Brien is the best example of this, where there's an episode, you're the Deep Space Nine expert between the two of us, so maybe you can recall the episode, where he basically lives an entire life. It's basically the inner life, but done terribly.
But for a prison sentence,
in a prison session, and he considers.
It'll come back to me in a minute, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He considers death by suicide at the end of that episode, and he comes away from the edge. And I draw a lot of parallels between that episode with O'Brien and the episode that we saw with Shaw, because he has his dark spot. And the thing I find so fascinating is when you look at the comments of that video clip on YouTube, you have a lot of servicemen who have experienced PTSD speak to the authenticity of the Shaw character, and how, and this is what really won me and brought me aboard this show, is he finds usefulness and he finds agency and he contributes to his best skills, being, a grease monkey, to help solving the central problem. And you had asked me about Shaw's character. They had brought up the fact that Terry Matalas, the new showrunner, brought up the fact that Liam Shaw is a reference to Robert Shaw, who was the main actor of the movie Jaws with Quint. I don't know if the character Quint, I don't know if you know that person.
No,
but he gives a big speech when they're trying to attack the shark and kill the shark, about the naval vessel that was carrying the atomic bomb and what had happened to that that ship after it delivered the atomic bomb. And a lot of people had asked, the scene where Shaw is talking about his experience in Wolf 359 is very similar to that scene with Robert Shaw and Quint. What was naming the Captain Liam Shaw, a reference to Robert Shaw, and he did confirm that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a factoid right there. Wow, interesting.
So I do appreciate that this is, as Robert Meyer Burnett pointed out, Star Trek's greatest hits, and I think that more so than even the Changelings, just bringing in a character who basically has the same experience as Sisko, and the fact that he was in Wolf 359, barely escaped with his life. That aspect of Sisko's character, I would argue, is done more effectively with Shaw because of different contexts. I mean, Shaw has things that Sisko doesn't have, and vice versa, in terms of Sisko is a parent, Sisko is also Space Jesus, so there's more to his character. So you didn't really explore that aspect of trauma, as you mentioned, I think, in our last episode. That whole trauma was over and done with in the pilot of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
The fact
Definitely.
that you could have several episodes to explore that interesting aspect of PTSD brought on by Wolf 359 and have it be accomplished positively and empowering, and in an appropriate way, humorously. I absolutely love how Picard, in his own sense of humor, takes a line that Shaw says. I can't, as a teacher, I don't say the words that were said in that line, but it's a certain kind of person from Chicago. And going back to Roddenberry's vision, this actually kind of fits Roddenberry's vision, where during his monologue, Shaw says, I'm just a putz from Chicago, basically. I'm not going to use the term he used, but why did I get to live? And then during the climax of that episode, you have Picard knocking on his door, and he says, we have a situation, and I paraphrase, we have a situation that requires a putz from Chicago. And I laughed out loud. That line, that single line, made me laugh more than every single episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, because it is so cathartic. It is so it's not screwball, it's not zany. It informs Picard's character. That would be his kind of humor, that kind of diplomatic sense of humor.
Your words, not mine. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. That is so great. And another thing I wanted to bring up in terms of strength, and going back to Roddenberry's vision, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. When the holodeck in No Win Scenario is turned online, I rolled my eyes so hard. It was like a demonic possession.
I know.
Because that's the first thing that goes offline in classic Trek. But there is a line.
I know.
But it makes sense, and I know you're shaking your head right now, but
audience members can't see that. Don't give that away. And I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, it's okay, but I'm gonna tell you why I'm okay with it, because at first it really, really, really bothered me. But here goes. I straight up told my wife, first of all, when we were watching this, I was like, okay, this is terrible, because in real Star Trek, that's the first thing to go offline. The holodecks always go offline, as well they should, because who cares? But Jack calls that out. And then Picard explains that in this design, the holodeck runs on a power cell, an independent power cell, to help people with their emotional well-being, and to use teacher terms, their SEL, socio-emotional learning, in times of crisis like this. And that reminded me of the first season of Star Trek, The Next Generation. And I'm curious, because I think we might have talked about this in our earlier episodes. Did you ever wonder why there was no real chief engineer in the first season of Next Gen?
No, I mean, I assume they were trying to. I don't know if we did talk about this. I can't remember if I had a thesis on this already. They didn't know who they wanted it to be. They didn't know if they was gonna how to get it away from Scotty, because Scotty was such an iconic character. I don't know. What do you think?
Roddenberry went on the record as saying,
"Oh, we have a reason." Okay, nice.
Yeah, as saying by the 24th century. Because he was asked the question, why is there a counselor and not a chief engineer? And he says, by the 24th century, our understanding and need to maintain technology becomes less important than improving the human condition. That's why we have a counselor where there wasn't one in TOS. and a chief engineer being one of the main characters, where he isn't one, at least in first season of Next Generation. And that kind of prioritization of promoting and prioritizing in times of crisis socio-emotional well-being over potentially other things by intentionally building the holodeck to have its own power source. That really spoke to me, because it's like, okay, that this is the central part of Roddenberry's thesis about the human condition and maintaining human well-being being more important than any other technological problems.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. I mean, okay, on a technical level, it is ridiculous, in my opinion, to use the holodeck that way. If it has backup power cells, take those power cells out and put them on and plug them into life support.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, also, this is a military ship. These people know they're gonna die. They did not. This is not families on here, right? Like, this is like not like Enterprise D style. This is Titan A. This is military personnel. I mean,
not
like kind of Voyager-esque. It's like those folks kind of knew they were gonna die. They didn't go on the holodeck and just Jim Jones it. I don't know. So I like, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Now to the counselor point. The counselor point is really interesting. I also just think that's like Roddenberry's ideal that can never be executed. And I'm not sure if it was because of Troy and her being a Betazoid and literally breaking many scripts with her powers if she was allowed to just always have her power. It's just like we don't see. It's just like, even if that's something he wants to prioritize, Roddenberry, in the end he switched it to prioritizing the engineer. We know so much more about Geordi and so much more about Geordi's work than we do about Troy. But yeah,
I'm not.
That could have been post Roddenberry either.
I'm not convinced Roddenberry made that choice, because around the time LeVar Burton becomes more prominent as chief engineer, Roddenberry was on his way out.
Yeah. And basically season 3, 4, Roddenberry fades out completely.
Yep.
Pretty much he's super involved in 1, 2, or at least 1 for sure.
1 in particular, yes. And then Mari Hurley takes over in for season 2, and then Mari Hurley gets kicked out, and you have Michael Piller and stuff like that coming in season 3. So once again, I bought it, admittedly, in a begrudging sort of way.
Yeah.
Because it's an attempt to go back to Roddenberry's thesis about technology makes everybody's lives better.
Isn't there a part in like Voyager 2 where they're like taking the furniture and they're throwing it into the replicator to unreplicate it and make energy again? Like, they're doing everything. They're like pulling the wallpaper down and throwing it into the replicator to switch it back. I just feel like, I think I understand that the scene was written first, and then a showrunner's like, guys, there's no power on the holodeck for this. And maybe that could have been a flashback scene, but then they're like, nah, we'll do too many flashbacks, and we already established these two didn't talk, so... Because you do see him seeking out Picard, but then choosing not to interface. You see that in no one scenario, but... Okay, enough about the holodeck. I feel like, you know, if our viewers want us to debate the holodeck, drop that in the comments, friends. Okay, I just have one more thing I want to talk about on strengths.
Okay.
And it's kind of a quasi-strength, and it will kind of lead into the struggles. Okay, what do you think about using the name no-win scenario? On the one hand, I like it because I was sure they were going to kill a character off because this is the last season of TNG. This is the last season of Picard. Can't believe I just said that. This is the last season of Picard, and I thought, oh boy, they're going to totally kill off Riker, or they're going to totally kill off... But they didn't.
Right.
They found a way out of the no-win scenario, and I was thinking about that. Okay, is that a little... Then I was kind of not liking it. I was like, is that a little too cliche? Because didn't New Kirk figure that out in Star Trek 2009? How to get out of the no-win scenario by, like, hacking it? And then didn't technically Spock get out of the no-win scenario by being reborn? I don't know. You tell spoilers. What do you think about that title? I loved it because it created anticipation for me, and I disliked it because I thought maybe it's just kind of playing into a trope cliche. I don't know. Maybe it's a minor thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it rubs me the wrong way, not because of what you're suggesting, but because of another thing that we're going to talk about. And I'm sure I'm going to bring it up. I'm curious what your thoughts are with struggles.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we launch into struggles then? You
No,
want to bring
no,
it up?
but I want to answer your question
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
because the thesis of that episode is togetherness. Once again, a Roddenberry trope.
Yes.
And everybody using their best qualities and their best strengths to solving the problem. Therefore, every no-win scenario can be solved, provided everybody is using their best strengths and contributing their best strengths and perspectives to solving the problem, which is that is the cornerstone of the Next Generation.
Yes.
And you even get some really big Next Generation vibes at the end of that episode where Beverly Crusher tracks down Jack and Picard, and they talk about that. And they go up to the conference room and they talk about it some more. Yeah, I mean, I bought that thesis and the fact that no-win scenarios can be won when the right resources and the right collaboration and people use their collective strengths that could not. You can't accomplish that no-win scenario without the collective gestalt of everybody's strengths and perspectives and gifts. And
Okay.
I bought it for that reason. I'm not happy with the no-win scenario title for another reason, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'm with you. And I don't have too much more to add. I appreciate your perspective in thinking about it as kind of the antithesis, maybe of what it is. Like a no-win scenario is winnable. I like that you kind of are thinking that way, and that's like a kind of the central idea of THG. Yeah, literally, all the best episodes are just all no wins, but they work together to figure it out. Who watches The Watcher? One of my favorites. That's like a good win. How are you going to convince these people that know you exist, that you're not a god, and that also that they shouldn't have commandments? I mean, what a great episode. Anyways, no, I think it's about that. I guess I'm grateful they didn't call it the Kobayashi Maru, right? That's probably
Right.
That would have been more that'd been a little more fan servicey. Plus, like, no one would have been able to pronounce that or know what it was. I guess I was happy that it built anticipation for me. Is where I'm coming from. And I don't look at the titles of the episodes until I pull up the streaming service. You know what I'm saying? And there it is. Season 3, episode 4. Oh, that's what I'm watching today. I try to go into it blank. Not having previewed it, or I don't watch the next time stuff. And I like that. It was effective. It was effective, and it created some intensity for me because I thought they were gonna do Riker gone for sure, but whatever. Let's get into the struggles. If you want to start with the no-win scenario stuff, I got a list of 3 things on my mind, but why don't you get going with either the no-win scenario concept or anything else?
So my absolute biggest struggle with this is in an attempt to return to what the producers think Star Trek is, and I do appreciate the effort. They have gone absolutely insane with fan service. I despise the title No-Win Scenario because it is one of the admittedly lesser known but still a fairly common catchphrase from Star Trek.
For sure. If it was, like I said, Kobayashi Maru, no one would know, but no-win scenario.
That would have upset me even more, though.
Okay.
More, because no-win scenario, okay, fine. If people are in a no-win scenario, they're about to fall into a gravity well, they're about to get crushed. Picard is told, remove yourself from the bridge, you just killed us all. That was a big bummer. And when you asked me if you wanted to make an episode about the most recent, at the time, entry, which was 17 seconds, I went, no, I need to know how this plays out, because oh my god, this is something. But there are so many references that a lot of critics and a lot of haters of this show reduce this show rather. It's basically a movie.
Yeah,
they reduce the show to member berries, and the excessive references give them a case. And my biggest concern was when that establishing shot at the very beginning of the pilot, where you see the SS Helios, and the camera pans through the passageways, and you just see a bunch of random references to TNG, like the orchids that are being cut in. I want to say,
What is it?
cause and effect.
Bingo!
Yeah, the
10 points.
causality loop.
Okay, by the way, sorry viewers. I'm sorry, Captain. I gotta say, the episode was called Part-Time. The O'Brien episode. It just came to me. I forgot that I was supposed to look it up.
That one, the O'Brien episode. There you
Okay,
go.
sorry, but yes, member berries for orchids definitely cause an effect. 100%.
Member berries for orchids.
Best of Both Worlds, Part 1.
Yeah, that reference to Best of Both Worlds Part 1. The to a lesser degree, the comedy and drama masks, the theatrical mask, because she did plays on the ship.
That's right, the dancing doctor, aka also the lesbian doctor, I suppose. Big time actor. Okay, cool.
Right, and
Correct.
you got the painting that was in the ready room that Picard wants to give to Geordi, and
Old TNG style luggage.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
with a classic right out of the 1980s, 90s. You pop it open, there's his TNG uniform, communicator.
Sure.
He's like the first little Easter egg / clue going off. Yeah.
And I see this as a correction for the fact that the writers for the first 2 seasons clearly were not Star Trek literate.
Yes, they had not watched more than a few episodes / movies.
Right, so they're not Star Trek literate, and for example, in season 2, they go back to 2024, and the only reason I lasted as long as I did with that show, when they decided to rip off Inception, I decided not to watch anymore, and I skipped to the end. But the reason why I stayed with that season longer than my best judgment should have allowed me was I was hoping you would get to see a perspective of the Bell riots. Because 2024, why in almighty Q's name would you send the main characters to 2024 America without referencing the Bell riots? And there is one ever so slight reference to a sanctuary site.
Yes.
But that's not, that's...
How could they get that? How could they get Sanctuary and miss Bell?
Yes.
I don't. Sanctuary is such a harder reference, if you ask me. To find, to pin down. Anyways,
and that's the thing that there were other references to this in other seasons. Season 1, there were things where it was like you don't know what that is. Red Letter Media does a tremendous thing about this, which is like the writers on Star Trek Picard only know as much about Star Trek as the guy on on their videos who isn't a Star Trek fan. So what does Jay know? If Jay knows it, it's in the show. If not, the writers don't know either. So I see all these excessive pop references, member berries, as a way to overcorrect for the fact that you say that we don't know what this stuff is. We do. Here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is. And that's annoying. Sometimes it gets tedious. That is definitely a struggle for me.
I always kind of see those as like shortcuts to world building.
Oh yeah.
Because it was never like, like Kirk's cell phone kind of thing that he uses, a communicator. I know it's a communicator, but to me, a communicator is a badge. But you know what I mean.
Sure.
Think about if TNG just kind of trotted that thing out without using it every now and then. It just wouldn't make any sense. That's not how you build a world with these glamorous piece of technology. Like the pads and the tricorders and the communicators, everything. All of that is just you watch them use it several times, and you watch them use it kind of reflexively as though it's every day, and it just it builds it in, and it's like to bring those things back. It'd almost be like if there was a movie about my life, and you in the opening panned across like some shoes and an old Apple device. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, I guess. But that's less useful in establishing this new thing than it would have been over time to do some subtle characterization,
You mentioned Kirk's handheld communicator, Yep, I know.
Love it.
The original flip phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because in the first episode of this new season, Raffi uses a handheld Kirk era communicator.
Yeah.
She does.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. I don't even think it.
Right after she buys the drugs, she walks out into an alley and pulls that out.
Yeah, cause she kind of goes into the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you brought up,
Hmm.
how Kirk's handheld communicator would be out of place, that's immediately where I went to.
Yeah, and it's just like it's kind of like blue milk in Star Wars, and is blue milk, is that a Tatooine thing? Are the robes they wear a Tatooine thing? No, let's just put it everywhere and make it universal now, so everyone has blue milk and everyone wears Tatooine robes. Oh, I thought they just wore that because it was really dusty and it kept them out of the sun. But I could be wrong. Anyways, sorry. So we can't talk about Star Wars on the Star Trek podcast.
Well,
Friends,
unless they want us to.
friends. Oh yeah, that's a good point. But faithful audience, we're moving into probably like the final stretch here because I'm about to drop a couple struggles I have.
Okay,
And
go drop
Mr.
your struggles, bud.
And Mr. G, if you got any more you want to throw in after this, by all means. I got two that I'm for sure not with, and one I'm on the fence.
Okay.
We can break these down if we want. We don't, we can figure that part out. Changelings. I'm really, I don't know. To me, it's the same thing as Borg fatigue.
Okay.
It's just like you've already done this. We already had a Dominion War. It's not that you can only use Klingons once or you can only use Changelings once, but Changelings infiltrating the Federation and being saboteurs. Come on, dog. I just got done watching that thing. It's called the Dominion War, and to just bring it out of nowhere. Now, you said you had a little foreshadowing the way the person looks at the yellow vested or yellow tunicked individual, I guess the operations division, looks at Riker Strange.
Yes.
Strangely. Is there any other hints that changelings are involved in this season before that? Or ever? It just feels so
By that you mean before that scene in the pilot?
Oh wait, is that scene in the pilot? I guess you're right.
Yes, it was
that
in the
goes all the way
pilot.
back to the pilot. That's right. But anything else? Do they say anything? Oh, with the Dominion War, we still haven't figured out where all the. It just feels so random to me, and I'm a huge Deep Space Nine fan, as you say.
Yep.
Kind of taking the big baddie and just cheating him into your story kind of feels weird. What do you think?
So I do have a answer to that. Another attempt that I think Paramount is making with building back goodwill with Star Trek fans is the reference of beta canon and former alpha canon. Mm-hmm. There is in Star Trek Online, I don't know if you played Star Trek Online, but one of the major selling points of Star Trek Online is that the Dominion is rebuilding its forces and is about to launch another offensive. So you already have the Enterprise F, which is in Star Trek Online, and it looks screen accurate to the video games. I attribute the Changeling thing to a reference to Star Trek Online, not 09, but Star Trek Online beta canon, and that's another appeal. I can forgive that a lot more than you do. And you mentioned Borg fatigue. It doesn't bother me as potential changeling fatigue does not bother me as much as Borg fatigue, because the changelings were around in one show. The Borg, we had Borg fatigue start with Voyager is when the Borg fatigue sits in, and then they brought them back for Enterprise, and then First Contact, and then
the first episode of Deep Space Nine is Borg related with Sisko's wife. It's just enough with the Borg.
There's a reason why they did that. It's because they couldn't afford on a TV budget to shoot the Battle of Wolf 359, so they decided to make that a TV movie for a pilot for another movie. Like, once again, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you, but it does speak to a struggle that I have. But we'll talk about that one in a moment. But yes, I can forgive the changelings because it's a reference to beta canon, and as far as iconic bad guys, you could do worse. You could be more lazy and more cliched than changelings.
Okay, so let's step it up. Here's my next struggle, portal gun.
Oh god, yeah.
Okay. On the surface, not that bad, but when you start thinking about all the ways that can either you could divert the portal or that the portal breaks Star Trek. For example, why not just project a giant portal over the wormhole in Deep Space Nine, with the other portal going on the other end, and then literally anytime the Dominion opens that wormhole, they just go right through the portal and go right back home. It seems like ships can't really steer off course once the portal opens, so like
Right.
it's like you're locked in. So I don't know. I thought it was clever and interesting-ish. It kind of accelerated the battle scenes to, oh, you're doomed. You don't have any counter for this very quickly. And then they just kind of cut it and let it go.
They had to ditch it because of its gravimetric features. It would have destroyed the Shrike if because they order the whatever. I think the Pa race are telling Vadic what's going on. I don't think
Oh,
the
those
Pa
are
race.
paw race?
I'm not sure. You don't know what they are, but I think they might be Pa race.
Yeah, we're really blended Deep Space Nine. You think they got a memo that says, dude, we haven't got Voyager or Deep Space Nine in here. We need those properties. We need those to jump up again. Oh man, if they're paw wraiths. To be honest, I don't even know if I could tell you what a paw wraith is. It's a evil spirit in the wormhole that the Bajorans worship. That Cisco's the opposite of. I think I can't even remember. It's been so long.
They're practically anti-prophets.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So
okay.
they're the equal and opposite in terms of power and morality to the prophets. So I'm convinced that whatever the creature is that's ordering the antagonist Vadic to do, which is not Vadic.
Vedic is different. Yeah, Vedic is also Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, but that entity is them. But we'll just call them Pa race for the purposes of our discussion. But the Pa race order Vadic to go into the nebula, and she says the gravimetric distortions will destroy my ship because of the portal gun, which I don't think is a gun. I think it's a there is a line at the beginning. They call it a gun in shorthand, but they originally say there was quantum tunneling technology at the Daystrom Institute.
Oh, yeah,
might be weaponized. But yes, we'll call it a gun too. But there was that. My whole gripe with that is it seems too derivative of other science fiction, specifically the Doctor Strange portals that they use in Avengers.
Yeah, or just portals from the game Portal.
Or portals from Portal.
I mean, wait, did you say it's a quantum time tunneling device? Don't they already have that? Isn't that what quantum slipstream is?
Well,
I guess it's not instantaneous.
Yeah, well, and also quantum slipstream didn't really work in Voyager. That was the whole thing. That happened in Timeless. I think that was the episode of Voyager where they try the quantum slipstream and Harry Kim survives, but everybody else dies.
Okay, so what am I thinking then from TNG, where they use the main deflector dish in Descent Part 1 and 2 to follow the Borg?
Right, they open
Don't even remember what
conduit.
Transwarp conduit. So the portal gun is different than a transwarped conduit.
Yes, in the sense that it is a quantum tunneling mechanism where they open up a gap in reality in one place and open up another gap in another, and you fall through, hence the quantum tunnel. I agree with you. It's not my favorite feature of the show.
It's a minor thing. It just seems very kind of over video gamey pop culture.
Yes,
but minor.
I'm definitely not a fan of it either, but I do appreciate the idea. They didn't develop this, but that's okay. They developed other things that I care more about. That benign technology gets perverted into something destructive. And I do appreciate that theme, albeit in a underdeveloped way.
Okay, well, I mean, we talked about the changelings. That's my major gripe that I told you about. My minor one was the portal gun. I thought for sure when Riker ordered Picard off the bridge at the end of episode 3, 17 seconds, Riker was, and says, you just got us all killed. I thought maybe Riker was a changeling. Because that seemed like a really strange tone to take with your old buddy that, like, almost got you killed a whole bunch of times back in the day. Like literally everything that went wrong. Like, I just rewatched Disaster.
Yes.
It's like I almost got you killed there too. Or I just watched The Loss, where they're pulled into the quantum. They're pulled along.
Two-dimensional creatures.
Yeah, but the two-dimensional entities.
Yeah.
And Troy loses her magic powers.
Telepathy. Yep.
Yeah, they almost got you killed there too. I don't know. I thought maybe that was a missed opportunity, but I think also Riker was trying to grow and develop as a character, and that's where that characterization came out, and trying to evolve beyond the injured father who's lost a son and is maybe playing a little safer. So that all made sense. Like it did, and I was glad to see all that pan out and make sense. But it struck me as a really intense thing to say to Picard, and it hurt my feelings a little bit. So I thought, okay, so maybe this isn't right. I don't know.
It hurt my feelings too, and that's one of the I can forgive that for one big reason. They attempted to borrow, because this is one of those things where it's Star Trek's greatest hits. It's not going back to Gene Roddenberry's vision. That's the key. Roddenberry's vision takes one small piece of the broader tapestry of what makes good Star Trek. Roddenberry's biggest commandment was that the command staff could not have arguments with each other. They could not have disharmony with one another. There could be no conflict. Now, when you take a look at all the characters on Next Gen that had conflict with each other, the first one that comes to mind is Riker and Ro.
Yeah.
They hated each other. Absolutely hated each other until they got amnesia, and then they decided they were married, and yeah, that episode. So but
I actually love that episode.
It's a good episode.
Conundrum.
It's a good episode, but anyway, Riker and Ro, big conflicts. Worf and almost everybody else.
Yep.
He has some crisis with them. Riker and Troy, drama. The only character dynamic in which you don't see active conflict of any real meaning is Picard and Riker. The only time in which you have a real crisis, you got Pegasus and you got Hiding Q. Yep. And those are the only two times, and it never escalated to anything malicious, knockdown, drag out. And I see what they did here. I got too excited. I see what they did in the epilogue of that episode as their attempt of saying, we were never able to do this, we're going to try it now. So
yeah, and again, I just thought, oh, this dude's a changeling. That's an intense change from demeanor. Thinking now back about, we talked about this in our season 1 review of TNG. Yeah, thinking about Roddenberry's commandments, thinking about the lack of conflict. You're right, you never see that, so maybe it would be interesting. I don't know if it's interesting so much as it got my attention for sure. Yeah, had an impact. So, not gonna say it was a fail by any means. No way. Just saying that it's definitely a standout part. Required some thinking, processing. I'm chalking it up to character growth. You're chalking it up to maybe character growth, and also getting away from Roddenberry because we can for whatever duration we have these characters left. Okay, I will say, I've been rewatching tons of TNG. There is another group of characters that has a lot of conflict. It's Data and Picard.
Yes.
Data and Picard have have a lot of conflict. Clues.
Yep.
Is a great example. The Offspring is a great example. There's one more that I was just thinking of off the top of my head. The one with the exocomps, the quality of life.
Yep.
And that's not as much. Is more like moral wanderings. It's not as much as the last two, but. It's funny how they paint Data and Picard as best friends in the first season. It's no, dog, that was Geordi.
Yes.
That was Geordi and Data, yeah. Or maybe Wesley, Geordi, Data. Like, it kind of got that really wrong. But it's okay. My friend, we're wrapping up here. What are your final struggles? If you want to throw one or so more on the audience. Yeah.
There is one minor final struggle that I have, and that's there's just some extremely nitpicky bits of writing that just bother me. For example, right after Riker tells Picard, "You just killed us all at the end of 17 seconds." No win scenario starts. Riker comes in, says, "I'm saying this as a courtesy. There's overlap in talking," and he says, "I was wrong. You were right." And I was like, "About what?"
Yeah.
So there's little bits like that where it's like the lack of discipline and lack of consistency in terms of following through with ideas. There's another one which, despite their attempts to make things scientifically authentic, there is no excuse for this line, and that's when Vadic comes on the screen and says, "Good afternoon. I believe it's afternoon in the Sol system." And I went, "It's always afternoon in the Sol system, and always morning in the Sol system, and always
You're right.
evening in the Sol system."
Planet's got to do this thing called spin.
Yep. So it would be a better line if you said, "Good afternoon. I believe it's afternoon in France," or you're, demonstrating that she's a calculating villain. It's just little, goofy flubs in writing, which if this show did not invest me as much as it has this season in particular, heaven forbid I say something good about the first two other seasons, it would have bothered me a lot more. But it's not as sharp as it thinks it is.
Afternoon in the Sol system is hilarious because I remember thinking about it at the time, and I was thinking, what? Like, isn't that why we went to like star dates and such? Because like trying to standardize time on Sol is a silly idea in a federation of planets. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you it's not afternoon on parts of Earth right now. So how could it be throughout all those? Anyways, I love that. I forgot about that until now.
Yeah, that "good afternoon. I believe it's noon." I was like, "Yeah, it is," and other times too.
A little bit. You're right.
So
okay, well, my friend, I feel like I've hit my points, and if the format of the show, audience, feels different, that's because we're finding fewer struggles, I think, these days than we're finding some things we can celebrate and talk about. Now, it's only 4 episodes in, and I'm guessing we're going to 10, like we did the last 2, right?
Yeah, they're going to 10.
So in the last 2 were 10, or am I just making that up?
No,
the last 2 seasons.
Well, this last season, this is the last season, and I think it's 10 episodes.
Yeah, but season 1, season 2, those were both 10 runs as well, right?
Yeah, only Discovery got more episodes in their first season because of reasons.
Okay. I mean, I feel pretty optimistic. Let's see what happens next. They've kind of closed down this story arc.
Mm-hmm.
We still need Geordi. We still need to bring Worf and Raffi in with the other crew. So I'm imagining that starts kind of taking center stage here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything else to say except I have a memory alpha page up for Damar. I don't know why. I thought it would be useful at some point in our conversation. Damar, a wonderful villain from Deep Space Nine, played by Casey Biggs. I had something to say a while back, but no idea what now. And it's not important. What's important is that you, our good viewers and listeners, tell us in those comments what you thought of this episode, what you thought of Season 3, Episode 3, and Season 3, Episode 4. And moreover, hitting that like button, getting those views up. Remember, trying to get that 500 views. That's the name of the game. And those who are following along and leaving some comments down below, we're going to pay attention to those, and that will steer the ship going forward. It's like you're the helmsman, Take the con. Let us know where we go after Season 3 of Picard.
Please,
Mr. G, anything else on your mind?
Just live long and prosper.
Peace and long life, my friends.
Until
next time.
Hope you enjoyed that video. Many thanks to the students who helped make this video possible. And if you enjoyed this video and haven't already, please subscribe and share this video with other people who might enjoy it. I'd absolutely love to see Sci-Fi High School grow in numbers. With that said, till next time.